well, hey, more friendly hellos. Welcome to the December 2nd Allocator Filecoin Plus call taking place. Let's take a look at a high-level agenda. So a lot of changes are coming to the program right now on the heels of FDS and roadmaps for 2026. And on this call, we kind of like to talk a little bit about that from the guise of what would you like to see as the community and how are we communicating this in a way that we have your input and making sure that it's incorporated. So we'll start out with just the regular metrics check-in on how the program's been doing over the past few weeks. Then we will quickly highlight where can you catch up on the FDS sessions that took place in Buenos Aires 2 weeks ago, as well as a high level of what's kind of being discussed at these developer summits and how to get involved. We have a big program update with the on-chain cloud. So if you haven't seen this in different Slacks, we just wanted to put this on your radar at a very high level and just a quick summary of what it is and how to get involved. A tooling update, so you might see these posted on behalf of Damien, MPG, and John on Fiddle. So just as a quick highlight, what's some new tooling that you might have seen in the last 2 weeks? How can you work with it? And what can you expect as that goes forward? Then a lot of the call is on input and discussion. And it's looking at essentially what are the SLAs for the program as an allocator, as a client, as a storage provider, and how can those three systems kind of interact with each other in a way that ensures quick refresh compliance and that everyone's kind of aware of the rules of the program. So we talked about these a lot at FDS. We talked about these in the last call in October. And as we start to iterate these based off input, just want to keep that cycle going. So a lot of open discussions on that topic. We have two new organizations that are joining the Phil Plus community. So if they're on the call, giving them time to say a warm welcome, and that's Dekeinfo and 1001XR. So big friendly welcome. Glad to have you. We'll talk about that and highlight some things that you'll need as you get going. Then, as always, we save time for DataCap Refresh if you have any questions on the process or you'd like to take a look at this setup. And then there's always time for anything that you might want to have on the call. The slides are in chat as well as posted in the Phil Plus Slack as we go forward. This call is taking place on the 2nd. The next call is going to take place on the 16th. Be mindful of the time change. We peg this call to the UTC time zone. So as the world changes, ideally this stays right in the same, and we just revolve around it. Hey, 106 petabytes of DataCap went out over the last, I think it was about 4 weeks since our last call. So lots of DataCap, lots of clients. We saw 23 new clients in that time, in addition to the existing clients being served. So a big thank you to the 111 pathways that are working on like integrating this and getting the data in. Appreciate that as we go forward. Looking to see how this kind of goes forward as we go. All right. Hey, FDS Buenos Aires. So this took place on November 14th, 15th. Dates are kind of blurring, but I wanted to kind of highlight where you can go to see the videos. You'll see the link here. And then also kind of what's like a big highlight or big program takeaway. So what was nice about this FDS is that we had a lot of breakout sessions that kind of went through it and gave talks. And these talks were meant to build off the virtual sessions that took place in October. So these were almost like two parts where we introduced the material back in October and then got the developers in the same room so they could collaborate, idea share on a range of topics that went through. Great audio video systems that were in the room so you can actually come back and watch the recordings that took place. A lot of the recordings you can see captured here. We're still waiting for some of the more smaller breakout sessions that might not have the professional audio video taking place to have those released. So as those get trickled out more, we'll share those with you. But again, just wanted to highlight a great resource if you wanted to get more spun up on the FDS. I'll pause because we had a lot of great people on the call at FDS and see if you have anything like your takeaways or anything that you might want to share with the community on the topic. All right. All right. Hey, on-chain cloud. This is pretty neat. So you might see this in a lot of the other public Slacks, and apologies for the cross spam, but we're just so excited about this thing. So what's coming is essentially you can build applications on the actual cloud that's being developed. Beautiful website, as you can see how it's set up here. At the very top, you can see about the store, the storage providers, how the paying works, all the clients that are using this. So just as a quick friendly plug, I know that we have this in blogs. I know that we have this on Slack. I know that we've been updating this with the keynote talk from Juan at the session, but just a great way to see the community building on this and kind of bringing it forward. So worth highlighting here for us that are building things and integrating data, bring it forward. So just the same thing. If you haven't seen this Filecoin on-chain cloud, please check it out. We're going to see a lot more developments as this comes through. Really excited about this as it kicks off. All right. Hey, so you might see the updates from Damien that gets posted in the Phil Plus Slack. It kind of comes out every week or two. Just wanted to say a big thank you to them and invite them to kind of summarize a little bit about two might have updates that you might have seen from Damien about the DataCap stats or auto coring system, as well as some of the translations. So I'd be happy, or I see that we have Marta, John on the line. If you guys wanted to say anything, I'll be happy to turn the floor over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me all right? We realized that DataCap stats isn't very intuitive to use, and so we gave it a very nice big facelift. Kayray, do you happen to have fantastic? Yes. So the main page hasn't changed too much yet. This is your mm, general like overview of the program. We have our Sankey chart that shows us how, where is most of the data cap going. You can notice that actually we now store it daily, so you can go back in time and see how the Sankey has been developing or how it has been changing. The main changes really are, if we go to allocators, for instance, we brought all of the compliance charts into the allocators tab that are relevant for the allocators. You can click on them or you can just scroll down. It's a kind of infinite website, so you can just go down and see, the allocator list. We are still making some tweaks to it. The meta allocator list. Actually, if you go into meta allocator, you will be able, so go to any of the meta allocators, K-Ray. Yeah, or manual diligence will be better one. Yeah, the second one. Yeah. And you can now click again to the manual diligence, so you can see which allocators are under it. No, go back. And now click there. Yep. And then you can go to reports. And you will see that actually we have an aggregated report of all of the allocators that go under the meta allocator. So if you can click on it, we can actually see how this pathway is doing, not just the individual allocators under this pathway. So this kind of removes the allocators and just looks at the clients that are served by this pathway. So that's, I think, quite cool and quite useful when you want to see how program is doing. If we go back to allocators, we will see and scroll down further down, you can see all the scores and charts, how they are changing, obviously. We can move around the thresholds and so on. Now, if we go up to let's go down to go up, sorry, to the top of the list, and I believe it's in a storage providers tab. So all the way up and to storage providers. No, just on the top bar. Yep. And now you can go down and you can see how storage providers are doing. And you have actually more and more detailed charts, basically. So you can just dive into each one of them. And finally, if we go to the alerts, you should all be aware of the alert system that is at the very top. Yeah, that tells us for each allocator, what are the changes? What are the things that your clients are not passing? So this is a really good way for you to be aware of, like, oh, I probably should talk to those clients because I have only 50% of active clients, or maybe some of the clients are not using the correct IPNI reporting, and so on and so forth. And we have a system wide breakdown as well. I'm not sure if I should talk about the scoring now, Kayray, or do you want to jump into it in the section for scoring?
I think let's just talk about it as much as they'll listen. So I'll pull it.
Sure. So let's go back to allocators. And now if we go to an allocator, so we have now a leaderboard. A leaderboard is basically saying, what is your allocator score? Currently, we do not adjust it by like how much data cap you've given out. So obviously, IPS4s with 24 PIBs of data cap allocated is pretty impressive to have an 86% score. Top blocks with only 1.4 PIBs, that's much easier to have a very good allocator score. Top blocks, I'm sure you're going to get to many more PIBs with equally good allocator score, but just pointing out that, it's different. And now you can see the breakdown here of the score. And if you hover over the score itself, so like the 9 out of 9 points, if you go there, Oh no, sorry, explain. Yes, there we go. The explain will tell you how we are scoring this. So what are the weights and how we are doing it. If you have any feedback, if you think that the weights are wrong or you think that more points should be given to one thing or not the other, please do give us feedback. We've been trialing this out for I think a month and a half or so. We've adjusted quite a few things. We are still adjusting. And I believe the hope is that in next year, in January, we will be able to provide this as a basis for the compliance reviews that the governance team is doing, so that it is much faster and much easier for them to do those reviews, because like everything's just unified, and also you know where you are on that allocator dashboard. So I think that's all from me. Have fun, explore, give feedback. There's always an option to request another graph or chart. And all of the pages of DataCap stats, you have a button to report that you would want a different chart. So I would love to have more ideas on from you all on what charts to build. Thank you.
Man, that is lovely. I'll pause and see if anyone on the call has any questions. Nice. That's nice. Hey, there's one more piggyback. MPG, did you want to talk about the language trick that you taught me and that we have on Slack, or would you like someone to kind of highlight this?
Sure, we can talk about it. Yeah, so I think a few of you actually have already tried it, which is awesome. We just finally got around to doing some research on the best translation extensions and build translations into Slack so that you can translate any message in from your language to or from any language to your language, and from your language to any language, more or less. There are some languages missing. I don't think it translates to Catalan, which is like a dialect in Spain, but I think it's good enough for most communications. So yeah, K-Ray here provided instructions on how to get into it. The only thing is that if you are bridging into Filecoin Slack, so you don't have a native account, you might have some issues using your non-Filecoin account, Filecoin Slack account. But I think we all have Filecoin Slack accounts, and Hayray was able to use it, and he is from FF, so I think that's all right.
We would hope. We would hope. Hey, there's one thing I'm going to follow up on this. I just kind of noticed it. I think we might have burned up all the character limits of the current plan. I don't know if anyone else is getting this, so I'll follow up.
Oh, okay. Well,
Notice.
that's that I'll pick the team. Because we are trialing it, I think they went with like a free trial just to make sure that it works. But we'll see if we can extend that.
Yeah, that's such a cool feature. Thank you so much for spearheading that. And I think that kind of ties into how we're looking at this. So we just take for granted that we've had these calls based in English. A lot of the tooling updates, a lot of the governance updates come in English. The applications come in English. Program rules come in English. So as Marta was highlighting there, a lot of the feedback was how can we increase that language to make it a worldwide audience? So this is just one of the first of many as we start to look at how we can get written blogs out, how we can do this. So big, huge thanks. Big, huge thanks. That goes a long way. All right. Hey, on the last call in October, we talked a lot about the roadmap, and I kept two of these slides here, even though we changed quite a bit as they go forward, just so that you can kind of see where the head's at for tooling and what the program is doing. So on the last call, we talked a lot about how we're looking at the progression of expectations for allocators, essentially allocators serving as the glue that makes sure that everybody is compliant in the program and making sure that it's a win-win-win across the board. And so what metrics can we give to those pathways so that they know they're being effective and they're doing the role accurately as we go through it? So we talked about these two. We're bringing on two new pathways. We'll make some time to talk about them. And we're really looking at the compliance. I think MPG did a great job when she was showing the DataCap stats about talking about we would like your input. So those weights on those scores. Do these SLAs measure what matters? Do we really have your input? So that's why we're hosting it on these calls. That's why we have the discussions. really, really looking for your input as we go through, and then trying to communicate kind of how we're thinking about this as we go forward. So I'd like to re-pull out these two that we talked about in October and just kind of tell you what we're looking at as far as updates and trying to make this process work. So we have this slide, and I've kept this purposely in the slide deck for every governance calls, probably for the last 3 months, to just kind of keep it front of mind. What are we looking at as far as the DataCap refresh go? But then smelling this out in detail so that it's a little bit clearer as you're running a business, how you could think about this. So for 2025, we have 5 categories that we're kind of broadly thinking, and we'd like to just kind of talk and share on this call. And then we're going to have the written format of this as well to kind of look at the main goal. And the main goal isn't meant to be like a gotcha, here's no more data cap, thank you, but more of like, how do we make this smooth? How do we make this steady? How do we make this something that you can use as a pathway? And as a client, you can come and really understand what's coming forward on that. So in the next few slides, I've broken down these 5 categories for 2025. And rather than reading them, I'm just going to post them and we could talk. But again, the goal is to get your input. Is this the things that you want? And are we communicating this in a way that you kind of understand what the program is asking for, whether you've been here for 3 years or for 3 weeks? So let's take a look at these and kind of like dive into it. So again, remember the goal is that we're trying to get that steady data cap and we're trying to make sure that you're compliant. And the first one is just looking at how are you working with the storage providers? So when the client applies for the data cap, are you verifying that like, hey, this is the right stuff so that they've got good retrievability? You're looking at these metrics, the same ones that we're pulling back from the data cap stats for the allocators. These all tie. So as an allocator, you're keeping up with the data cap that's actually going out the door versus waiting until the refresh and saying, okay, wait a minute, there was this whole big problem with 5, 10, 20 petabytes, and now we're kind of having to deal with it. So being really mindful about like, hey, if they're new, are we proceeding with care? Do we know who they are? And we give them a little bit more trust. This is really what the program stewards of an allocator are serving for. The next one is like, hey, are you verifying that these public open data sets are actually retrievable? So if you look at a lot of the numbers that we have in DataCap stats, a huge chunk of this is going to the public open data. So really looking at like, okay, how are we as allocators, as the community, as the program supporting this public open data? So if you're looking at this regularly, you're checking these metrics, you're pulling this, doesn't have to be often, but as this role of distributing the data cap, it's part of the check, right? You're seeing these things crop up so that when the data cap refresh time comes, you have a little bit more of an understanding of like, okay, where did that bottleneck come from? So if you open up one of these, we can actually see, okay, hey, is this data retrievability? And when you're looking at this, ideally, this isn't a wait till the last, but hey, does this make sense? So again, coming back to what MPG was saying earlier, if we've gotten this wrong, if we should incorporate some more things or reduce some things, this is really what we'd like your input on. So we have discussions, we got this call, but this is kind of what we're building the program around. So it's kind of listed out so you can kind of see it, make sense of it. So again, this kind of comes back. MPG, I see your hand. Yes, please.
Yeah, and I just want to, as a person who runs an allocator and an open data allocator, I just wanted to share one thing, which is that for our public open data sets, we regularly just try to access the public open data sets that the clients are storing with us. This has nothing to do with IPNI. This is like Spark doesn't matter here. The public open data sets should be public and open and should be accessible. So as an allocator, I think it's very important that you do that check and you say, well, can I access this data? Because if anybody should, then I should be able to access this data. And then talk to the client, see what's happening, why is it not accessible, and how can you help them improve that? So just to make sure that, like, I know that there's a lot of confusion because what Spark does is slightly different. RPA tries to kind of omit the mistakes that Spark did. But at the end of the day, as an allocator, as a human that operates in the Filecoin ecosystem, you should be able to access public open data sets from Fiddle, from yourself, from any other public open allocator. So please include that as part of your checks because it will make everybody's life much easier.
Really great point. Really great point. All right, we've talked about this one for quite a while, and man, it feels so good to kind of like put some points on the board with this coming to fruition, and that's removing unused data cap. And so we've heard this a lot. Hey, we had somebody come to us, we've given them the data cap, it's not gone out, but now I'm kind of tied up in this. So if we look at smart contracts solving a lot of the problems that we've had, this is a great one to look at. So right now, it's not a hard requirement that you're using smart contracts for your transactions. But when this comes on board, this is why it's going to be really nice. And we're kind of moving in this direction because with smart contract, it allows you as an allocator to pull that data cap back so we can remove it. So again, something to be mindful of as we're kind of looking next year is, hey, we should start to see maybe all transactions move to a smart contract. If we're looking at this like, hey, data cap for paid storage deals, it is going to make sense that we have some type of requirement or tracking for those deals that are coming through. So again, if you're not moving the smart contracts now, I highly recommend you take a look when we're on the allocator tooling page to kind of see how that's set up. Real simple, happy to walk through on the next call if we see value in like how the tooling works or the workflow, but it's good to go. And so making sure that that data cap that is going to clients that isn't used as an allocator, you can start to redistribute that back. So we're really looking at this as we go forward as well. And last, I'd like to talk about that payment deal because this came up a lot. Came up a lot in FDS. We're hearing this a lot, like with the community that's coming back. And that's if we're serving these enterprise clients, we should have a very clear record of like these paid deals that are going forward. Right now, we're taking a lot of time with like there's a couple different ways that you could verify this with invoices and going back, but obviously this isn't a scalable issue, and that in the absence of like a Filecoin transaction tooling that we need to have something, and that's where the on-chain payment deals really come in. So as we see smart contracts come on board, as we see these on-chain payment deals, this is going to be making sure that your clients are actually paying for those storage deals and not just kind of saying this is going forward. So we're going to see a lot more like from the allocator looking at these paid deals and verifying these and looking at it. So again, that's 2025. This is a big slide to digest. So I'm going to kind of clean this up a little bit, but I just wanted to make sure that we're just floating this as we start to talk about some of these concepts. We gave you five that we're looking at for like, how do we quickly get this all set up for like the next couple of weeks? But what does it look like on that roadmap for 2026? And that's what this is. So the big three things that you'll see right here is that SLAs on chain. So as an allocator applies, they spell out how many number of storage copies, what regions, what retrievability will look like, how they're going to be doing that. And so we're looking at, okay, how do we bring the tooling up? So in January, February, we're going to be talking a lot more about how do we kind of support these smart contracts and on-chain deals as we go forward. And then how do we measure these with the SLAs that are going? And again, kind of coming back to what you see with these scores, this is how we're doing it, where we have clear benchmark numbers. If it said it was going to be this and it was going to be that, this is where we'll see it. So really tying that back is a real big focus. And then the service quality of clients. If we're going to position Filecoin as like a storage network, and at the Fil Plus program, we're designed with, okay, how do we help facilitate that onboarding of data onto the network, making sure that this actually works for everyone involved. So again, the allocator serving as the epitome of like this matchmaker service where they're making sure that everybody is playing their role as they said they would. This is going to be needed for like on-chain SLAs. This is going to be needed for like SLA scores. This is going to be needed for how we're looking at client satisfaction. So really the allocator pathway, the organization that's running that data cap to clients is thinking about how they're structuring that business. And the last you can see this is like just moving to this paid on-chain deal model where we can actually see that there's paid storage deals that are going forward and then tying the Fil Plus to those rewards. So what that means is like, hey, if we're an enterprise, we're onboarding an enterprise that's kind of setting this up, we should have all of that data 100% verify that they paid for it. If not, are we doing this service for free? That's a great conversation. Should we look at what that data is and coming it forward? And then really driving that up. I think if we look at our numbers right now, we're hovering around 36%. So we have a lot of room for growth and looking at how we're doing this. The second one is how do we do the proof of payment? So if we're doing the public data sets, really looking at, okay, what makes sense? We've talked about limiting that to 8 copies, not having 36 copies of the same weather data, and really looking at like, okay, once we made that public open data, is it actually verifiable and is it actually public and open? Can we actually retrieve it? If not, what was the whole point? What was the point of the exercise if we onboarded the public data and no one can see it because it's not retrievable? So really looking at this number and making sure that it's doing its job essentially as it goes forward. And then really kind of tightening that system. So we talked a lot. Roll this, get a little bit of feedback, iterate, test, see if it works, and then kind of adjust as we go forward on that. So again, we're looking forward to these, really, really looking for input. So if you have thoughts, please let us know, because again, what these tie back to is that score that we're looking at, where there's a mathematical model of did the allocator, the storage provider, the client, everyone involved do what they said they would, and have a way to go through it. MPG, I see your hand. Love to hear from you.
If only I could unmute myself. Yeah, I just one thing that I wanted to make sure that people are aware, because for us it was a big surprise coming out of FDS, and so like I wanted to share this with the rest of the community, that the intention is that over the next, I think 9 months really, not all data storage will be paid for. So we will, or the ecosystem will be removing the public open data sets or enterprise data sets. It doesn't matter whether data set is publicly available or not. There has to be a payment for the storage connected to it. And that, I think, is like, everybody should be happy about this, because I know many of you are storage providers as well. And so, and your storage providers are generally like, would be happier to get paid clients than not paid clients. But this is just someone to like be aware of, I guess, moving forward. And as you're working as an allocator, start thinking of how can you get, if a client comes in with paid with an open data set, maybe suggest to them that this should be a paid deal, or something, just like, let's start building that understanding that that biggest chunk and the sand key that we have today, which is public open data sets, it is going to have some transactions attached to it, financial transactions, that is, on chain, ideally. So that's just like, because I was surprised when like this became so clear.
+1 MPG, +1. Uh, ZZZ, I see you're on the call. You had some questions about yours. Super happy. Let me talk about the DataCap refresh and 2 new allocators, and then we could happily dive into any questions that you have. So thanks. Hey, topic of refresh. 2 points I wanted to hit. One is a big thanks to Amin, who's really looked at this and tried to streamline it. Maybe about 6 months ago, things weren't nearly as smooth as we took a look at how these audit process works. Sometimes it could take up to 30, 38 days from the time a organization submitted a request for data cap refresh to the time that they actually received that data cap. So not just props to Amin, but props to Fiddle. When you check out the data cap stats and when we check out the applied on allocator.tech, now it's a lot more simple rather than having to triage through dozens of threads in GitHub, which we still have for tracking, but we have like a real visual way that we can kind of see these. And so again, we're at that 2 week mark. And so I think that's worth like kind of highlighting and celebrating. So big props, big thanks for the tooling, big props to you, Amin, for kind of rocking these and making sure it goes through. If you're part of these 7 organizations, these are working through right now. So Amin and I synced yesterday. There's no real big red flags that I wanted to call out on the call. But if you have any questions, again, as always, you can see this kind of listed as they go back. And one kind of little alibi, you'll see the 4th review of the MDMA filed by Amin is a refresh on how we do that. So the manual diligence meta allocator receives the data cap from the root key holder and then disperses that out to the enterprise data and the public open data that comes through. So that's going to be topped up. Again, the goal is that that pathway can then feed these pathways, eliminating the wait time on that root key holder. So we're really seeing that pay off. Just wanted to say props and thanks. If anybody has any questions, please let us know. and kind of talking a little bit about like what we're seeing from like a non-compliance. So really the goal is that everybody passes this. This isn't meant to be like a gotcha or come back. Really the goal is we're thankful. We're thankful for your service. We're thankful that you're joining us on this. So how do we kind of help you understand what would lead to not? And then what do we do when we kind of come in these situations? So we've seen two pathways that were not renewed. And what we look at with these is, again, we've highlighted on previous calls, if there's no issue, it just passes. If there are things that the pathway or the organization was doing that were incorrect or could be coached or fixed, we give a small amount of additional data cap, around 2.5 petabytes, and then we see how you can handle that. If there's structural issues that just led to this was not meeting the mark, then that's the conversation that we're kind of having with like, this might not be a good fit for you and the program for what the program needs, as well as what you may need. So ZZZ on the call will happily open that up and see what led to that decision, see what we can help you as far as coaching. If you want to come back and say, take a look at a different type of pathway that you might be interested in. But on that note, too, we've had two new organizations that have just joined the program. Once their bookkeeping repo is set up, they will receive their data cap and start onboarding. So big friendly welcomes to Dekeinfo and 1001XR. This is kind of a new model where in the past we would have an organization wait sometimes up to months before we had a time frame that they could apply. Now with the apply.allocator.tech, it makes this process real simplified as we go back. But again, just to kind of stress, if you look at how this data cap is going out, we are still not seeing a lot for the experimentals or the automated. And so we're really kind of pushing this same focus on the program. There's not a lot of value in having 111 or 85 or 60 manual review pathways that are all onboarding the same public open data. So we're really looking for like, okay, when you're coming onto this program, what should we start seeing? Like, are we going to start seeing the smart contract usage? Are we going to see great retrievability that really kind of blows it out of the water? And if the answer is no, well, then the question is, what new value are they adding? So a lot of great conversations with these two new pathways, looking forward to some really great numbers on retrievability that they're kind of committing to. And so we're really happy to have them, looking forward to great things that they're going to bring. So with that, I wanted to pause and see if there's any topics we talked about here that we wanted to dive into, or we can go right into the questions that are coming from chat. All right. ZZZ, I see your chat. So I'm going to pull up the data cap request that kind of led, and is just like everyone on the call as we're going through it. ZZZ is from the organization Jingbei Trade. And why we have on the call, and we're going to take a look, is that during the recent refresh, this is one of the two that did not receive a refresh. So ZZZ, thanks for being on the call. I know that we have a Min with us as well as myself. Maybe a real healthy place to do is I'll just kind of start with what I see, and then I'll hand the floor over to a Min to kind of answer any questions you have or talk about why this did not receive a data cap refresh. Two out of those as we went through it. So thanks for filing this as we come back. We always leave these open for a couple of days, and the goal of this is to give community a time to kind of look at it. And a lot of the times we see community input funneled up through the watchdog. And what we can see right here is that all the data cap went to one client. And then when that client got the data cap, there was just nothing as far as retrievable. So there was no data samples that could come back. We can go back. And then when the data cap was allocated, it didn't go out in the numbers that would have indicated somebody was watching it or somebody was serving as a steward. So when there was a number that was said like 1.2, what in reality was happening was like maybe an overrun of like upwards of 10% to 1.4. And so these highly uneven distribution strategies were called out. And so when Amin does the review, what he's looking at is, okay, was this like a tooling thing? Was this unclear in like what the requirements were for like getting the data cap out? Was this going forward? And so Amin's kind of calling out that the SP concentration, it's high. It's not just high, but it's like alarmingly high. It's one, and there's no geographic distribution. And when this allocator pathway was set up, it was said that, hey, we're going to have geographic distribution. Hey, we're going to check this. So these things weren't done. These things weren't done that are like the core tenets of what an allocator pathway would do as it comes through here. So again, because it had 100% to one, had no index files, no retrievability, it's like essentially giving a loan and then not seeing anything done with it. And that's what led to like, okay, we haven't seen this. This isn't something that can move forward and we come back. So ZZZ, I see the reply. I don't know if this was you or another member of your team. This was a great response that like, hey, your outreach has been limited. So you really haven't kind of had a chance to kind of get on board. And I really respect that and appreciate it. We're trying to help you as we go through it. The only issue is that, like with 110 other pathways, when one like this doesn't do any of the ones, it just kind of sticks out. And it just kind of raises the question, when we do this with you, this takes significant time. And then we're looking at the value that comes from it. We're just not seeing it. We're just not seeing it. And so when Amin kind of writes back on this, a lot of the conversation is like, yes, how can we help you? How can we go through it? But again, if we're not seeing that kind of back and forth, it makes it really difficult. So I'd like to pause, just kind of want to summarize this. I don't know if English is like a very good way to chance or if you want to use a tool as we go forward. I just wanted to pause and see ZZZ if you had any thoughts or input to share. All right. ZZZ, here's what I would recommend, like for next steps. Let's always take a look at like what are some next steps that we could do to help you as we go forward on that. So one of the things that Amin kind of calls out is that some of the communication makes it really challenging to kind of work with you if we see a lot of inflammatory comments that come back. So kind of to help, if you take a look at the pathways, the application that you submitted and that was onboarded was one of these public open data sets where you get the public open data, give the data to the clients, give the data to the storage providers, you reward them with the data cap, and then that public open data is available. That wasn't a good fit. This wasn't a good fit for how that pathway ran. It just went to one person and they didn't onboard anything. So that was not a good fit. There might be additional good fits for your organization if you're looking to stay in the program. And some of those good fits would be the experimental pathways. So if you've taken a look, we've talked about this, we have different pathways other than just the public open data set. So if you're keen, what I'll do after this call is I'll link the applications if you'd like to develop a tool or if you'd like to have a process that runs back. But just kind of standing behind like what some of the points are, I don't think that there's a way to justify a refresh on this when the old data cap has already gone out in full. And this is kind of what we're talking about on the call. It's important as an allocator that we're not waiting until the very end after there's been this gross non-compliance that goes forward on that. So I will respond to this link with some other options that you want to go through. If there are clients that you're working with, again, there are 110 other allocators that will be very happy to help connect with those SPs or those clients. That way, there's still this free flowing of data caps. So it doesn't have to stop anything, but we'll just help set you up for an area that where you might be able to add more value to the program. ZZZ, I see the message in chat. I'll just read it here. So it was you had kind of talking about that you knew that there was some issues, but there were also some redeeming qualities. Amin was talking about improvements that went back, but you have no data cap left to improve that. Yeah, I get you on that, ZZZ. It's a valid point. I think what Amin is kind of building to on this one is as we do that refresh and as we get that data cap that goes out, there are several organizations that pass conditionally. And the reason why some of these would pass conditionally and some of them wouldn't would be just the level of outright non-compliance that went into it, just frankly speaking. So if there was one thing like, hey, the data is in multiple countries, but it's not retrievable at 10% versus zero, the reason why this one was just a failure and why it was not renewed and why it won't be given more data cap, it's because of just the gross mismanagement, honestly, of the 5 petabytes that went out. It doesn't warrant more available options when that 5 was just done without any spec, without any alignment on what you said it would do. So whether that was tooling or training, whatever it is, the next way that you can kind of get back in the program will be on a different pathway that went back. And ZZZ, yes, we don't have like a set window for applying to your question in chat. Will V7 be through? But I think what I'm telling you is you don't have to wait for an application to come up to be another manual allocator that comes back on this doing public open data. I will link if you're keen to take a look at, okay, how do I rebuild that with an experimental pathway or an automated pathway or bringing clients a different way. But as it stands right now, yes, this pathway will not receive additional data cap due to just not making the requirements that were set out. But we'll be happy to kind of talk about what are some other ways that you can look, other data cap that go through, and I'll be happy to write in this after this call is on.
But I would just echo what you said earlier, Kay, though. If an allocator wants to make sure that we get a really fast review, let's make sure that we do everything we can to make it super simple. Because that's, I think, where I see Ammon spending most of his time, it seems, is like digging out the information and trying to help us as allocators to get the best review possible.
All the best, everyone. Cheers.